Welcome in. Belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 131, Week 13 Rewind, and it is my great pleasure to welcome into the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing tonight, Bernie?
I am like my sit-start decisions. I'm questionable at best.
Oh, wow. All right,
Yeah.
we'll help you get through this. We'll work on this together. We're okay.
Oh, thank you.
Don't worry, I'm your opponent. I'm not going to sabotage you, I promise. All right, guys. In this show, we will recap the week number 13 of the Wingman Fantasy Football League. We will check in on those updated standings, take a gander at that demolished Goosometer, strap in for a Mike Rant. We're going to take a glance at some high-priced waiver wire targets. We'll play a little game I like to call Please Hold or Time to Go. And we'll also evaluate our starts of the week from the previous week. There'll be time codes. You can skip that if you prefer. And we have some more sad puppies. But before we get any further along, let's make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, let's get in. Oh, wait, actually, before we get in the news, I want to say a couple little things here real quick. The theme for week 13 is division leaders all fell this week, and the playoffs are still alive for our most desperate managers. And I also want to praise one of our league members here, Ben's brilliant team. His roster management this past week and a half have been very well done. I appreciate that, sir. We know we had a lot of attention a couple weeks ago. It was mostly the combination of one of our more active and aggressive managers went up against our more casual, laid back in terms of timing of pickups managers. And that combination made for an interesting discussion. But Ben did not complain. He noticed there was room for improvement. He did just that, moving Gabe Davis to his IR, picking up Caleb Williams and starting him on the Thursday instead of waiting to see Brock Purdy have a dud on Sunday night. All those moves allowed for Ben to increase his playoff chances. But with that, let's see. I have a little here. I'm getting a little sidetracked. All in all, Ben, you took it on the chin, made the appropriate improvements and corrections, and I personally want to say thank you for doing that. Give you your props. Do you have any comments based on I shouldn't praise everybody for taking care of their team, but it was noticeable and I appreciated it.
No, because I've got responsibilities and nobody pats me on the back for going to work and paying my bills. It's just things you're supposed to do. But good job, Ben.
Well, if you aim low and just whatever.
No. I'm just upset because he's passed me and he's probably going to make the playoffs, and I'm really struggling to get in. And he's doing a good job. He's got a good team. He's a good manager. Good job.
Such sincerity. All right. Now it is time to look at our player news. If I push the right button over and over again, the wrong buttons. That's part of the charm, we say. Part of the charm.
What is that? Is that Inside Edition?
I think so. Yeah.
Memories.
All right. Starting off with our player news. J.K. Dobby, yes, Mr. Potter, who suffered a knee sprain last week, was put on the IR this past weekend, is going to miss at least 3 more games. Austin Eckler, also who suffered a concussion last week, was put on the IR this past weekend, and he too will miss at least 3 more games. Now for some bigger news here. Christian McCaffrey suffered a PCL knee injury and was put on the IR for the second time this season. This ends his NFL regular season as he's expected to miss at least 6 weeks, but he may be eligible to return if the 49ers find their way into the postseason. And unfortunately, Jordan Mason, his teammate, is also expected to be placed on the IR as he suffered a high ankle sprain in that same Sunday night game to the Bills. That field, that conditions, we said we can't put these games on the most extreme conditions on purpose, and they did it, and people got hurt. All right, what do you have on these 4 players? Dobbins and Eckler out. All these guys are on the IR. Dobbins, Eckler, McCaffrey, and Mason.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's start with Dobbins here. So, week 12's lost to Baltimore. The Chargers, they relied on Gus Edwards and Hassan Haskins in the backfield. The rookie Kamani Vidal's absence was mainly due to the team's performance for Haskins on special teams. So, looking ahead, Vidal could see some significant playing time as an explosive replacement for Dobbins, while Edwards is continue to be the role as the power runner here. Eckler, I feel bad for Eckler, actually. The backfield duties are probably going to be split between Brian Robinson, Jeremy McNichols, and Chris Rodriguez. So that one is a little bit of an iffier backfield. Brian Robinson obviously going to probably be the lead back there, but that's, here nor there. McCaffrey. Okay, McCaffrey and Mason. I guess if you held on to Garendo, you win. I don't know. I had him for a minute and then I dropped him.
This is not to make light of this, obviously. I'm making a bad comparison here.
This is all fantasy talk. So
yeah, no, but I'm saying like you would never expect to lose both guys in the same game. It's I was gonna say like like a plane crash or something like that's not cool, but you know what I mean, like just like you wouldn't expect both guys to be taken out at the same time unless something extreme happened, like the example I just gave inappropriately. But
right. So we could play like American Pie in the background. Like
I know I was thinking, I had a lot of things running in my head. Yeah.
Okay. No, but in all honesty, though, like we don't know what Shanahan is going to do because he's going to have. I have this guy's name here somewhere. He's going to have somebody come up from the practice squad, and who knows if that guy is going to be taking over all the things. And I did not get his name. There is somebody that they are looking at coming up from the practice. Obviously, they have to, but
they said they were going to sign a couple people this week to help bolster, and I was waiting for some maybe like. I'm not saying this would work. I don't think this player particularly, but I was waiting for someone like a Leonard Fournette or like, an experienced guy, even like a Matt Breida who's played in that system before. Yeah. I was thinking maybe he can call the trade deadline's over, but maybe he could call his good buddy McDaniel and have him cut Jeff Wilson, and maybe they could pick him up off waivers or something like that.
Yeah.
But they signed pretty much practice squad no name guys who have been it was Israel. I forget his name. It's a long name.
I know you're talking about. I should have written it down.
But they picked up guys who I wasn't expecting they were picking up, and people I don't expect to challenge Garendo for playing time at all.
Exactly. So, and we'll get into this on the waiver wire, but Garendo, that's the go-to there. So, but maybe this will help Debo. Maybe those jet sweeps will start back again like they did a few years ago. Maybe something else. Shanahan is going to dig deep. He might have to just start using the playoff playbook because they're struggling to make the playoffs. So
their playoff run starts now. If they don't win out, they're not. It's going to be a tough go.
Exactly. So don't save those plays for if you make it to the playoffs. Use those plays, get to the playoffs.
There you go. All right, getting some more player news. Kendre Miller, in case you're aware, he is the backup, or he plays for the Saints. He's pretty much been on the IR, I think 2 different times. If he wasn't officially early in the year, he missed the first 3 to 4 or 5 games, and now he's missed the last 4 games. He's eligible to be designated to return at any time. They expect to do that, but they haven't done it yet. And in case if you've been following along, you can't practice till you're designated to return, and then you can be on the practice field for up to 21 days prior to being forced to being activated to the roster. But none of those things have happened. They just said we expect to. But if you haven't plan on playing them this week or even next week, you want to get those practices started. I would assume sooner than later. That just means more good news for Alvin Kamara this week, as there are no backups, and the impending backup has not been designated to return as of yet. Josh Jacobs, running back for the Packers, obviously. He's been limited in practice pretty much for the last 4 weeks, minus 1 or 2 full practices on Friday. Once again, he is limited this week. They play on Thursday night, so I'm assuming they're just keeping him as rested as possible, and there's not enough time to get in different levels of practice before their game. Let's stop right there real quick just with these 2 running backs. Kendre Miller, he was on my preseason radar. I thought he had a chance to take over the backfield, but then they re-signed Kamara to an extension, and he's been hurt or in the doghouse all year long.
Yeah. So let's start with Josh Jacobs here. It's LaFleur just hasn't indicated anything that's serious concerned, and like you said, it's just managing workload, expectations and stuff like that. So the rest is I think just precautionary. Okay. Kendre Miller. So this is what Rizzy offered positive comments about Miller's potential. Kendra Miller is a talented player. There is no one who can sit here and deny that. He can produce for the team. He also pointedly stated, I don't have a doghouse. My doghouse is empty at the moment. So that's suggesting a fresh start for Miller. So if he can, get on the field, he's not going to be limited by previous incidences.
So there was rumors that pretty much the last move Dennis Allen made before he was relieved of his duties there was to put Kendra Miller on the IR, even though he wasn't really hurt. It was just to say, just like, you're not playing. I'm leaving. My parting gift is you're screwed, bud. I hate you.
Pretty much. So Miller could potentially see an expanded role, but that's if the Saints fall out of playoff contention. So as long as they're in the run and Atlanta looks like they're slipping, Tampa Bay looks like they're coming on real strong. So we could see a lot, like you said, a lot of Kamara.
All right. Azeez Al-Shaair, the Texans linebacker who put on that monster hit onto Trevor Lawrence, has been now suspended for 3 games. I did notice a stat that I came across that I guess we don't really follow defenses too much here. And some of these guys, we just don't know that they haven't been in the league long enough. So I don't know how good he is, this player, off the top of my head. But I did see a stat that when he's in, opposing running backs average 3.5 or less, around 3.5 yards per carry. And when he misses games or he's not on the field, I'm not sure if it was games or just plays, the opposing running backs average closer to 4.5 yards per carry, if not a little bit more. So he's a big difference maker in terms of their run defense, which is already kind of suspect. So with him being out the next 3 games, there might be potential for some sleeper running back play from the opponents of the Texans.
Yeah, so I don't have too deep of a notes on this, just an opinion, just because, like you said, we don't really follow running or defensive individual players. So I've watched that replay a couple times, and when you watch it in real time and when you watch it in slow motion, you're kind of seeing 2 different things, right? Slow motion, you're kind of like, okay, he's not even pulling up. He's not pulling up. Why is he not pulling up? But when you watch it in real time, he's already in the air before Trevor kind of goes down. Like, Trevor's making the motion to kind of go down, but that guy, he's playing like lights out fast. He probably should have not done that because it's a quarterback, but quarterbacks today, sometimes they'll give you the little juke like they're going down, and they're not going down. And Trevor Lawrence isn't one to slide. He's a big guy. He likes to go for those first downs and reach the arm out and stretch for the sidelines and stuff. So I think the suspension, I think it's 3-game suspension, which he can appeal. The suspension was due to the fact of the fight, taking the helmet off, instigating it as he was walking. He instigated it twice. After he was retaliated against, he instigated it, or he got into a fight, which is fine. If somebody hits your quarterback, I think it was Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram was right on top of him, putting him down. And of course, if somebody's putting you down like that, you're getting up and you're sticking up for yourself as well. But then as he's ejected, he's getting off the field. He pulls his helmet off and he starts it again. And then they've got him on previous fines, previous, hits, other things like that. So it's not just the hit that we saw that caused a 3-game suspension. It's like an accumulation of the things that happened after that hit and things that happened before that hit. Because I think if both of those things were cleared out, if it was just, the one thing, it would have been, you might have been ejected from the game for the fight, and that was it. No suspension.
Yeah, he did have 2 fines throughout earlier in the year, like you said, on some questionable hits. So it's kind of a 3 strikes you're out kind of thing in a way.
Yeah.
And then I thought the same thing in terms of whether the hit was dirty or not. And I'm not saying it wasn't dirty, but I'm just saying the way I looked at it was, I thought his timing was fine.
Yeah,
he started his dive before the slide started.
Exactly, and he went in with his forearm, with his shoulder. He didn't lead with the helmet, like helmet to helmet, knocking his head off. If Trevor didn't go down as fast, that would have been a chest shot and not necessarily a headshot. And it kind of doesn't look like he nailed him in the head. It looked like Trevor's head just got flipped back, like Tua's head always does.
Right.
It's like one of those things. So I'm not mad at the play. I mean, obviously it was a crappy play. Trevor got hurt.
Right.
But I'm not mad at the defensive player for doing that. I think that maybe the NFL should have some other stipulations within quarterback scrambling and having to slide, like they've got to if they're making the gesture to slide, they can't fake a slide. They can't do those things because the defense is now stuck because he's
Right.
now, he's like, well, what am I going to do? Let him get a
Right.
first down or possible touchdown? Or am I just going to take the penalty and get a big hit? So I don't know. It's a crappy situation all around.
Yeah. I thought the timing was reasonable. I thought the technique was more the issue, kind of diving Superman style.
Yeah.
But again, what else? Like you said, there's not many other options, but that was the thing that was more, not egregious, but more wrong, was just the technique. I thought the timing was just, that's how football goes,
Yeah, it's just that's a shitty moment, which is fine. You get the penalty and you move on. The retaliation, you get into a fight. Okay, you get ejected for the game. The suspension, though, I don't think had anything to do with just that hit.
A little, I don't want to say politics in a negative way, but a little bit like, reaction to everyone's reaction to it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we got a couple more players in the news here. Sorry about that. We got Taysom Hill will also miss the remainder of the season as he tore his ACL and will require season-ending surgery. And Aaron Rodgers will remain the starter according to interim coach. But I'm making this up. This isn't a real quote, so just take that. But when asked for comment, Rodgers said he doesn't even know if he wants to play anymore. So, but he'll start if they ask him to, something like that. All right.
All right.
What do you have on these last guys? Taysom Hill. The least important part of it is that I spent a lot of money for a guy who got hurt the very same week. In terms of fab, that's not important. But a guy who's having, honestly, he's had similar years, but I think he was going to finish off this year being featured more than ever.
Yeah.
I think he was going to have a big time end of this season. And he's an older player. We don't realize how old he is. He's 34 years old. This might be the end of his career.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Which is sad. If you're a Saints fan, or if you're, I guess, a cool play football fan, because he was that guy. But he wasn't, outside of that one game, and he wasn't a fantasy relevant person.
He was a nuisance.
Exactly. Because he only had 8 catches for 188 yards.
Right.
It's like one of those, like, I'm sorry. 8 catches. He had 188 yards from scrimmage and only 18 passing yards. So he wasn't your quarterback that he could have been. He wasn't the rusher except taking touchdowns, and he really wasn't the pass catching tight end that another team is. So I don't know. It's a sad day for that. Okay, let's move on to Aaron Rodgers. As far as Taysom Hill goes, the other, I think it's Juwan something. I have
Juwan Johnson.
Juwan Johnson and somebody else. They're not going to.
They got Foster Moreau, right?
Foster Moreau, yeah. They're not going to do anything more than that. I wouldn't pick them up to start them or anything like that. So I wouldn't worry about that. But the Jets, on the other hand, if they're 3-9, so they're narrowly eliminated from playoff contention, I guess. So maybe Tyrod gets in, or Tyrod, however you say his name, who's under contract through 2025. So he could take over, and that might help. Garrett, that might help Breece Hall. I don't know if it does anything for. Go ahead, say his name, Mike.
Oh, Devontae Adams.
I don't think it helps him for that. I think Aaron helps him, but Tyrod helps the other players. To get at least some fantasy value out of it.
All right, guys, it is now time to take a look back as we do the Week 13 rewind.
Let's go back. Week 13 rewind.
All right, guys, let's start off with a rewind, starting off with 2 teams that were tied atop of the Snap, Crackle, Pop division. I got to remember the order there. Pop division. We had Michael's Amazing Spidey coming in at 7-5 up against our point leader, Alex's They Took Our Jobs, who is also at 7-5. And I am pleased to report that we had an upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Michael's Amazing Spidey took this one down 110.7 to 98.62. And so that was a 12-point differential. And just to show you how close all the games were in Week 13, this was our biggest blowout.
You got knocked the fuck out, man.
All right, let's see what players helped Amazing Spidey get this one down. We have the great Bijan.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
Bijan Robinson had 22.5 points. Future Hall of Famer, as Bernie likes to say, Mike Evans had 21.8 points, and Josh Jacobs had 19.7.
He's on fire!
Amazing Spidey did have one dud, Calvin Ridley at 5.5 points. And on his bench, he had Tua Tagovailoa get 25.2 points.
He's on fire!
He's been on the bench through all of his hot streak here. He did have an injury. It wasn't a player who was on his team for long, but the aforementioned Taysom Hill did suffer a knee injury and will be out for the rest of the year.
Oh, no.
Now to Alex's day took our jobs. Like I said, he had 98.62 points. Very respectable, just not enough in this particular matchup. His top performers this week was Josh Allen. Keeps chugging along as he's on that train at 28.42 points. His running back, Saquon Barkley, had 18.7 points.
He's on fire!
And Jacoby Myers had 12.7 points.
He's heating up!
And in his dud list this week, he had the Miami defense for the second time this year, and the second time against Amazing Spidey, ironically enough, gave him 0 points. Now, his bench top scores was longer than his starting top scores this week, as Drake May had 21.42 points on the bench. Adam Thielen brought out his cane and was working at 19.9 points. Jaden Reed at 18.2, and he picked the wrong Scottish kicker as Chase McLaughlin had 16 points on the bench, and he had an injury of Trevor Lawrence, who sustained that concussion.
Oh, no.
All right, what do you have on this game, this pivotal game, and a major upset here?
Yeah, his big dogs kind of let him down, Derrick Henry and DK. So he played the right lineup. They just let him down because he would not have started Adam Thielen over DK Metcalf or Reed over DK Metcalf. Like, that's just not something he would have done. So just a bad luck. He played the right players. He did his job. The players let him down.
Now, in all fairness, Jaden Reed only had a couple catches, but I thought with Romeo Doubs being out, I would have played Reed and I would have found a way to get him in. And I think Metcalf was the one to sit of his. Not an easy choice, but yeah. Metcalf's up and down, and it seems like whenever one of those receivers missing, one of the guys left over has a pretty good game. Would have been I was watching his lineup, and once that 8:15, 8:30 Thursday night game started, and he didn't put Reed in, I was like, I breathed a sigh of relief, and then when he scored, I even kept huffing even more.
Yeah. And he could have pulled it out if Allen would have just wanted more touchdowns for himself.
I can't believe I was like, if I'm up by, I forget, I always have the number in my head. I think it was 34 or 39 or something like that.
I think 39. Allen could have had a 40 burger easily, I think, in that game.
Yeah, no, but I mean, going in, I'm like, if I'm up, because I know with him having Allen left, I'm like, if I'm up by 32 points, I've got a pretty good shot. 23 is not enough. 32's pretty good. And then when I got to 40, I'm like, I got this. And then he started rolling. I'm like, oh my gosh, is he going to get 40 points? Because he can do it. We've seen it.
Yeah. And on your side, you had some good matchups there. Bijan really came through for you. And Mike Evans came through for you. So go NFC South.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next game here. We have Reggie's Lions, who came in at 3-9. Up against Paul's Cuba Rage, our number one seed going into this week at 9-3. These guys couldn't have been coming in any different fashion, as we had a 3-game winning streak for Cuba's Rage and a 3-game losing streak for Reggie's Lions. And talk about upsets. This was the upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Reggie's Lions scored 110.78 points, defeating Paul's Cuba Rage, who had a very nice score of 104.44. This game was bonkers in terms of the upside down in the records and who took this one down. Let's see. Not only... Oh, actually, I have to change that. I have to fix that. Never mind. So this snaps the 3-game losing streak. This snaps the 3-game winning streak. Let's see what players helped Lions take this one down. Starting off with his quarterback. Not even his best quarterback this week, but Lamar Jackson had 25.38 points.
He's heating up.
And Austin Brock Bowers or Brock Austin Bowers? Let's figure this out right now.
I think you got to start with his first name. You got to
Brock Austin Bowers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, Brock Austin Bowers.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
had 25.2 points. And Terry McLaurin, he's been good almost every game this year. A couple duds, but for the most part, he's been awesome. Terry McLaurin had 23.3 points.
He's heating up.
Line Eyes had no duds, and he could have got a little bit of a better score, although his whole team played well this time, as Russell Wilson had 28.86 points on the bench. Najee Harris took all of Jalen Warren's work at 21.9 points. And Brian Thomas Jr. finally got back on the board at 16.7 points. His only injury was Rashad Bateman, who had left with a knee injury, and right now it's determined to be minor. We're not sure how much time he's going to miss. But let's check in on Kubert's Rage team, who once again had a huge day, but just not enough this time. Jaden Daniels at 29.64 points.
He's heating up.
James Cook at 18.5 points.
He's on fire.
T. Higgins at 15.4 points.
He's on fire.
Justin Jefferson rebounded off his awful game last week to get 13.4 points. And don't look now, but Kai May Fairbairn is chugging along on that train with 13 points.
Care Bears, stare!
The Fairbairn stare. All right. He did have one dud of Cooper Kupp at 3.2 points. And on his bench, oh my gosh, these guys with top quarterback performers had even better ones on the bench as Jameis. Woo! Jameis Winston just throws touchdowns to anybody. Could be for the other team. It could be for his own. Who knows? At 38.98 points. And Ray Davis had a nice day at 13.2 points. What do you have on this game? The biggest of upsets and some huge points.
Yeah, famous Jameis on that bench, man. Who would have thought it? This guy, I just didn't pick him up in time, so I would have been starting Jameis all year if I could have him. Russell Wilson, too, had a great game on the bench. So, like you said, that those are good things. Lion Eyes, though. Lamar Jackson got some garbage time touchdown from Isaiah Likely when that game was way out of hand, like at the last under 2 minutes left. I don't know when Isaiah Likely got that touchdown.
It was less than that.
Yeah, I mean, so good on you for sticking with it and getting some garbage time out of a possible MVP. I don't know why you're still starting these Jets though, man. Get those Jets out of there. Jalen Waddle, maybe we should have dropped him after last week. I don't know. So Paul, his Bills pulled out for him, but Jalen Waddle let him down, I think. So
the Ravens Eagles game, the Ravens were down 2 scores, and there wasn't much time left because I was keeping track of that one as well. And I could be mistaken. I know he threw a touchdown, Jackson, but I thought he had a 40-yard run to get him down to like the 8-yard line. Yeah, on that drive.
Yeah, he did have a big run. I don't know the exact yardage, but he did have a big run.
So yeah, he got between 9 and 11 points on just a garbage time drive. That
was a garbage time win for Lion Eyes for sure. For Lamar and for Lion Eyes. So good. That was great job. That's what we strive for. If you can't have players on winning teams, then you want them on the really bad teams that will get you that garbage time. So. Yep.
Nice. Take advantage. Take it however you can get it.
Exactly.
All right. This game was fun, and it came down to the wire. A crazy game again. We had a lot of close games. This one, Katie's King George coming in at 4-8. Oh, I wrote the wrong score here. Sorry for that blip there, guys. The scores were still coming in from that Monday night game that ended on Tuesday, as Katie's King George scored a whopping 124.46, defeating Corey's Mac Daddy 2s, who had another whopping 114.44. This game was a major upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Unfortunately for Mac Daddy 2s, he had the second highest score of the week up against the team with the highest score of the week. And for the second straight week, that player with the second most points in the league is the highest scoring loser.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Going into Monday night, King George was down by approximately 8 points. And they each had players left in their lineup, with Jerry Jeudy in the lineup for Katie's King George, and Mac Daddy 2s had the defense for Denver. And both these guys had awesome days, but Jerry Jeudy, oh my gosh, Jerry the Judge Jeudy had 36 points.
He's on fire.
Jerry Jeudy is on fire. Can you believe what a pickup? She's been playing him too this whole time. She's been getting the points from Jerry Jeudy. Well done. And also Bucky Irving, our unofficial start of the week for our running backs, had 26 points.
He's on fire.
And David Montgomery, who played on Thursday, even though he was a little banged up, had 13.9 points.
He's on fire.
Let's see here. Now, she had no duds on her team, as you can imagine, with such a high score. But she even had some players on her bench who showed up this week, as Sam Darnold had 19.6 points.
He's on fire.
Do you guys hear all these fires people on her team right now? Brian Robinson Jr. on the bench had 17.4 points, and Mark Andrews had 15.9 points.
He's heating up.
Mark Andrews has had 13 or more points, and I've looked it up. I forget, it's either 5 of the last 7 games or 6 of the last 8. He's been pretty steady after that first 4-week duds fest he had there. But she got hit by the hardest of injuries this week, as not only did her starting running back, number 1 overall pick, McCaffrey, get hurt, but so did her handcuff that she traded for, Jordan Mason. Both these guys are now out for the rest of the fantasy season.
Oh, no.
On to Mac Daddy 2's team. His top player this week was also his Monday night player. The Denver defense had 18 points. Kyren Williams
Release the Kraken.
had 17.8 points.
He's heating up.
Chase Brown, this guy just coming into form quite well, chugging along on that train, getting 17.5 points. Chase Brown alone is the reason that made Breece Hall expendable. And Nico Collins had 15.9 points.
He's heating up.
This team, Mac Daddy 2's, also had no duds, and he did have one strong bench player. Cortland Sutton had 13.2 points. All right, what do you have on this game? I mean, so much to talk about here.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. Mac Daddy 2, nothing to be ashamed of there. Koo has been missing, man. So you might want to get another kicker backup in there, just in case, man, because Koo is not automatic anymore. The second half of the season has been bad for him. And he might have cost you this game. So, but on the other side, oh my goodness, Jerry Jeudy revenge game. He was traded for peanuts out of Denver. It's unfortunate that they couldn't win this game, but man, did he have a show out there. So awesome to see. Despite McCaffrey going down, Bucky Irving picked up that slack. So we're good to go over here. It's too bad, though. All of her fire is going to be at home as she's grilling because she's not making the playoffs.
Yeah, that's tough. She was set up to have a nice run. McCaffrey was supposed to be part of it, but even so, the Bucky Irving pickup she picked him up right away when I think Rashad White was banged up, but ended up still playing. I don't think he missed any time, or maybe one game. And Bucky Irving's been a stud and getting stronger and stronger as the year's been progressing.
Yeah, everybody that's making the playoffs should just be thankful that King George is missing the playoffs right now.
Yep. All right, on to our next game. Oh my gosh, Ben's brilliant team came into this one at 6-6, up against Nick's Waddle away, who was also at 6-6. The winner of this game would keep their playoff hopes alive, and the loser might be eliminated depending on the rest of the situations out there. In this game, I consider this one an upset, as our lowest scoring team for the season, Ben's brilliant team, took this one down. Listen to the score, guys. 88.84 to 88.28. This was less than a 1-point differential for Ben's brilliant team. And surprisingly enough, Ben's brilliant team has now won 3 games in a row. Going into Sunday night, Ben's brilliant team was down by about 4.7 points. And I honestly thought he was going to have it easy, as he had 2 players in that Sunday night game, George Kittle and Jake Moody, both for San Francisco. I kind of went to bed not even looking at the score, thinking he was going to get it. And then I looked over, I'm like, oh, he barely won. That's right. George Kittle only had 1.2 points and Jake Moody only had 4. So he got 5.2 points of the 4.7 he needed to win. Crazy that, lucky he only needed a little bit of points, because those guys gave him just a little bit of points. Let's see what other players, though, did help him get this one. It started off on his Thursday with Caleb Williams. He picked him up. We mentioned that earlier in our little praise Ben. Picked him up, put him in the starting lineup on Thursday at 26.14 points.
He's heating up.
And his teammate there, DJ Moore, also for the Bears, had 19.7 points.
He's heating up.
Puka Nakua had 14.6 points, and he is chugging along on those train tracks. And his defense, he's going to need all these points, man. Defense was at Pittsburgh, had 13 points. And I forgot to mention I mentioned it, but I didn't play the sound. Caleb Williams was a streaming quarterback.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
He did have a couple duds, however. Wan'Dale Robinson had only 1.6 points, and George Kittle knew the score, but only gave him 1.2 points. There was no one on his bench who could have helped, and Ben made it through the week without any injuries. Now for Nick's Waddle away. He was the lowest scoring team of the week. So this is 2 consecutive weeks where our second highest scoring team lost to the highest scoring team, and our second lowest scoring team beat the lowest scoring team. You can't ask for a better scheduling than that. But Waddle away did have some players who did help him out. Surprisingly, he had a lot of people on his high score list considering his score was so low. Joe Mixon had 19.7 points. Jamar Chase at 17.6 points.
He's on fire.
Jonnu Smith, the number 1 receiver for the Dolphins, had 16.3 points.
He's on fire.
And at 15.1 points, Devontae Adams had 15.1 to round out his top performers. His dud, though, was massive, as Justin Herbert only had 7.98 points as the Atlanta defense dominated that game, but the Atlanta defense could not get the win for the Atlanta Falcons team. Now for players on his bench who definitely would have helped out in this close matchup. David Njoku, another Monday night superstar at 21.7 points. And Sam Laporta had 14.1 points. What do you have on this game? Lowest scoring team against the second lowest scoring team, and the closest game, maybe the closest of the year, under 3/4 of a point.
Yeah. So who's the better quarterback? You played the wrong LA quarterback, it looks like. Stafford could have gotten you this win. You played everything else pretty good. Pacheco, though, that was a questionable. I guess you kind of run with it, though. You know, when you're in his position, you got to go for that big boom play. But that's his first game back. That's just a iffy call right there. So all I have to say is that when this game hit 88 miles per hour, shit is gonna happen.
Did he only play 1 tight end this week?
He did. He played the right one, though. I mean, he did have Laporta on the bench with points, but he only played 1.
If he would have played all 3 of his tight ends, if he would have played Pitts, that would have been a 0.
Yeah.
If he still has Pitts, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
But 3 of his 4 tight ends came through with big games this week.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, on to our next game on the docket here. These 2 teams are also tied atop of their division, the Crackle division, and a budding rivalry, perhaps. We're not sure here, as Andrew's Crazy Fish came in at 7-5 up against Jimerson's Red Sox Nation, also at 7-5. And once again, we have another upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
I know their records were the same, but Red Sox Nation had a good hefty 60 or 70 point lead in overall points. But Crazy Fish took this one down, 105.66 to 101.32. Another close game. All of our victors scored the exact amount they needed to take on their opponents. Let's see what players helped Crazy Fish get to this victory. All right, starting off with the donkey man himself, Joe Burrow had 25.26 points, and he is chugging along. George Pickens, despite whatever attitude issues or just behavioral problems he's having with the team, he is still productive at 14.9 points. Marvin Harrison Jr., when he scores a touchdown, he gets double digits. Did he score a touchdown this week? Yeah, he did. 14.5 points. And the Dallas defense had 14 points.
He's heating up.
And I have to say, I mean, I'm not being biased here. I know we're talking about some of his moves, but Crazy Fish has been awesome this year. He's been streaming his kickers and defense all year long. And once again, he's picked a streaming defense that was at one of the top scoring defenses.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
Speaking of streaming defenses and kickers, this kicker he's played for the last 3 weeks, but he started off as a streamer. Jake Bates once again comes through at 12 points. His only dud this week was Chuba Hubbard at 4.3 points. No one on his bench could have helped as he played the nearly perfect lineup, and he made it through the week without any major injuries. Now to Red Sox Nation. Rico Dowdle had 19.8 points on the Thanksgiving Day. And Chris Boswell, it's been a little up and down, but his monster games are monster. 16 points for the kicker for the Steelers. And Trey McBride of Frankenstein.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Trey McBride had 15.6 points.
He's heating up.
And Drake London, I don't know how he got this with the amount of passing yards in that game, but Drake London had 13.1 points. His dud, however, was his number one pick, CeeDee Lamb, at 4.9 points. Left the game early with aggravating a shoulder injury, but he too had no one on his bench who really could have helped, and he also made it through the week without any major injuries. This was a huge game for the 3 or 4 reasons, but the playoffs here and these guys tied atop the division. What do you have on this game?
Yeah, there's really not much on this game. They both played their best lineup that they could have played. Like you said, nobody really on their bench that could have improved their lineup. So just bad luck on this part for CeeDee Lamb not being able to finish a game. If he would have finished that game, would have had a different outcome.
I'm wondering if yes and no. Like if Lamb would have played better, would there have been less for Rico Dowdle? I almost think they would have had the same number of combined points, give or take, that like 25 to 30 at best. You know.
Yeah, so I see that. Yeah, but he's got 1 rushing touchdown, and he only had 3 receptions, Rico Dowdle. So I don't see him taking too much off of the plate. I'd like to see maybe the other Dallas receivers and see what kind of points they would have had, but still, this is a good game. Both of these managers, their records are good because they're good at putting the correct lineup in, playing the matchups week to week, which they did for the players that they had on their team.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks, if I recall, did score a touchdown. So you could argue that could go to Lamb if he was on the field.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to our last game of the week. Bernie.
We can skip this. I'm just joking.
Bernie's Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
Up against Ken's The Fantastics. Bernie came in at this one at 5-7 on life support, up against the spoiler man himself, Ken The Fantastics, who came in this week at 3-9. And coming into the Sunday night game, their last players, Bernie was up by 7 points, and he just needed to survive Deebo Samuel and the San Francisco defense. I didn't write it down, but I remember. But with a loss, Bernie would be out of the playoffs. Could he survive such a low score from those 2 San Francisco players? He could, as he took this one down 92.96 to 89.68. Another game that was so close. I thought this was going to be the closest game until I realized what happened in that Ben's game versus Waddle away, as this was less than a 3-point differential. Let's see what players help Bernie take this one down and keep his playoff chances alive. Anthony Richardson at 25.16 points. Jonathan Taylor at 16.8. Alvin Kamara had 13.9, and the Seattle defense had 12 points.
He's heating up.
He did have a dud of Ken Walker at 5.9 points, and Tyron Tracy on his bench. It's hard to say when he's going to do what, but he had 13.5 points on the bench. And for Team B, no major injuries this week. Now for the Fantastics, he had a pair of Dolphins on the top of his top players this week. Tyreek Hill at 17.3. And Devon the Man Achan at 17 even.
He's on fire.
And a little lad McConkey had 16.2 points. Now for the duds. These are the people that Bernie needed to underperform, and these were the duds. Deebo Samuel, what is up? He only had 4 points, and the San Francisco defense had the goose. 0 points for the San Francisco defense. They did not like that cold weather one bit. Now for some bench players who definitely would have helped. You can't predict this though, but Keenan Allen had 21.8 points. And they did have an injury of Lad McConkey's been going in and out of the lineup. He did finish the game. He seems okay, but he's a slight receiver who eventually is just going to be worn down, but he's going to fight through it as long as possible. All right, what do you have on this game? You couldn't even watch that Sunday night game, if I recall.
No, yeah, we were recording, and I didn't even want to watch it. I couldn't have lost to a better fantasy football player or I mean, be a better fantasy football player. Mr. Fantastics is really good. The his Dolphins players put up some good numbers, even though the Dolphins lost. That was good to see. I think if Ladd didn't get hurt, he might have had this game because Ladd was rolling. So I think that really set him back there. I just can't catch a break, man. I can't catch a break. I can't get all of the stud backs I have and AJ Brown to put up like solid numbers. So it is what it is, and we'll just move on to next week.
Well, it's coming because those players are good. I remember in the beginning of the season, I couldn't score touchdowns. I didn't have any touchdowns for the first, I think I one touchdown the first 4 weeks from my position players, not including quarterbacks. And then all of a sudden they started scoring not in bunches, but multiples were scoring in the same week. And then I went from never scoring 100 points to getting 110 points almost every week. Touchdowns are huge. And your guys are stored up. Like AJ Brown is a double-digit touchdown scorer a year, easy. And he's due to get a nicer run here, and maybe he'll come right on time. We'll see.
Yeah, man. Next week, if I can just pull out a few 30 burgers on my roster, that would be great. Not like 2 or 3, but maybe like 4 or 5.
That realization just hit you pretty hard, but that's okay. Don't worry. One of your guys going to be one of your players going to be on start of the week next show, and I expect him to have a monster day. All right, let's get into our updated standings. Bernie, why don't you take us down here?
All right. Hubert's Rage is doing his best Bills Mafia impression, but he didn't get to break any tables this week with the loss. But 9-4 record, 1,341 points puts him in first place. And would you look at Crazy Fish from 5th to 2nd place? They're moving like a shark that just smelled blood in the water, buddy. 8-5 record with 1,261 points. Amazing Spidey at 3rd. He's like the guy who keeps winning at the casino but swears he's not counting cards. Up from 6th with 1,229 points. They're either really good or really lucky, and I'm starting to think it's both. Mac Daddy 2s is in 4th. He's like the trust fund kid who doesn't need to work but shows up to the office anyway. He's just cruising with 1,339 points, living their best life. Speaking of scoring, though, get this, everyone. They took our jobs. Has the highest points in the league with 1,380 points. But they've dropped from 2nd to 5th. Mike, that's like having a Ferrari but forgetting to put gas in it. Am I right? Let's pour one out for Red Sox Nation, folks. Dropped from 3rd to 6th faster than X. Well, whatever we're calling it these days. Lost its blue check marks. Ben's brilliant team at 7th is like that C student who somehow ends up as class president. Not the most impressive stats with 1074, but they're failing forward with style. Team B at 8th place is giving us a real middle child syndrome vibes here. Not bad enough to be memorable, not good enough to brag about, just existing in that fantasy purgatory. Waddle away, sliding down to 9th place, faster than Tyreek Hill on a go route. Mike, they're like their beloved Dolphins this season. Explosive one week, imploding the next. At least they can still do the Waddle touchdown dance while checking their disappointing 1,195 points. King George is stuck at 10th, like that last bit of ketchup in the bottle. Just won't move. Lionized at 11th is giving me real participation trophy vibes. But hey, at least they've got 1,269 points. Talk about failing upwards, folks. And the Fantastics. Oh, the Fantastics. Still 12th place. You know what, Mike? I'm not even going to roast them. Their record of 3-10 is doing all the work for me. All right, Mike, you want to know what the craziest part is? The season's not even over yet. But before we dive into the playoff scenarios, which, believe me, they're messier than my browser history, what do you think about these standings? And for you guys out there, drop a comment. Let us know who you think is going to make the playoff run this week.
So there's still a lot of movement to be had here. I'm going to put this up real quick. If you notice, we only have one team that's officially clinched. That's Cubert's Rage on the top of the Snap division there. But I will tell you, unofficially, all the teams that have already 8 wins, that's Mac Daddy 2s, Crazy Fish, and myself, have unofficially clinched the playoffs here. They can't be 7 teams to get 8 wins. The most we can have to get 8 wins is 6 teams. And we have 6 teams to make the playoffs. So I don't know why they, I guess because Ben could get, I guess we have 7 teams to get 8 wins or more. No, we can't. Because if he gets 8 wins, then Red Sox doesn't. So yeah, I don't know why. I guess they don't take into the fact that who's playing who, that if one wins, another one loses. I guess they just say there's 1 game left and there's 1 win to get to be in the playoffs.
Right.
So yeah, so those teams with 8 wins have unofficially clinched a playoff spot. I'm going to say that Waddle Way, even though he can get to 7-7 and there's a chance a 7-17 makes it, he is 200 points behind the team he'd need to chase. And I'm going to say that's impossible to get. I usually don't put points out of reach, but at 200 plus points I think he's down like 185 away from They Took Our Jobs. That eliminates him from the playoffs. Bernie, you need 2 things to happen, or 3 things, I guess. You have to win. You need Alex to lose because our other 2 7 and 6 teams are playing each other. So one's going to win and one's going to lose. And then you have to outscore Alex by, 90 points, give or take.
Yep. So if Alex has to lose, and when he loses, I have to have 90 more points than him.
So let's look at some math here. You can get our highest score ever is 170 points, right? Or 172 points, give or take. This year we have had a 142 point game. You're gonna have to break this season's record. You're gonna have to get that 150 area at least. And then Alex, if he's in that 60s, which we get 60s all the time, I say that's the range you're looking for. And up or down 10, because no one's gonna get. I don't think we'll have 1 game that's under 60 points this year. So you have to assume someone's going to at least 65 points. So you're going to need 155.
Yeah. All right.
Which is possible. And I'm telling you guys are stored up. You have a monster game coming, and it might come this week.
Well, we'll see. Fingers crossed. I'm not out of it. So you're saying there's a chance.
The other thing here is, surprisingly enough, here the winner of the we'll talk about more in the preview, but we just want to mention it here. We'll get more into the standings and seedings and payouts and stuff next week or next show. But the next game has has Ben's Brilliant Team versus Red Sox Nation. They're both 7-6. The winner is in. The loser is out.
Oh boy. Oh wow.
The only way the loser could be in is if they lose and they outscore Alex, who also loses by like the 40 points or whatever. So it's hard to lose and outscore somebody by 40 points. But
unless you're the highest scoring loser.
I mean, against Ben's Brilliant Team, the odds of you losing and scoring a high number are not, they don't go together.
This is true. But Alex will be getting a 65 points next week, so he's gonna own the dud list next week. All
right, well that's what you're looking for. I'm not saying it's likely. That's where we're at.
I love you.
All right, guys, let's move along to you guys. I told you to stop it. And I wasn't gonna do a new graphic, but I was like, no, I will. All right, we're gonna take a look at our Goosometer.
I'm just cruising along.
Do you hear that red alert? That means there's too many gooses. All right, guys. So now we're up to 22 gooses as They Took Our Jobs for the second time this season had Miami's defense get 0 points. And like I mentioned before, both times were against Amazing Spidey. And the Fantastics had his second goose for the season as the San Francisco 49ers defense also got 0 points. 22 gooses, breaking the meter, red alarm. What's going on here?
I don't know, man. It's a lot. So with all these gooses, is it goose hunting season?
Maybe. There's a lot out there. We got what's the word you want? Like control the population here, man. There's too many gooses out there.
Too many gooses out there. All right. Good on it.
All right, guys. It is now time to get into a Mike rant.
Baby rant. Karen rant.
I don't care whose fault it is. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think.
Mike Rant.
All right, guys. We're going to do things a little different this time. I've been holding it in for a long time. We're going to go to the college football game this time instead of NFL. Gus Malzahn former UCF coach. I know we've got a lot of UCF former students and alumnus in our audience out there. This guy, completely erratic as a coach, unfocused, double dealing, went 28-24 over his 4-year stint with the UCF Knights. He came in on the backs of Scott Frost and Heupel, who both had undefeated regular seasons while he was there. They kept saying he was the guy who ushered in the UCF going to the Big 12. Those deals were being done before he got here off the backs of those previous two coaches in back-to-back undefeated seasons. This guy would spend more time complaining to the refs instead of calling timeouts or taking care of his. There's more than one time in games where they're trying to come back and we'd be driving down or something and we're trying to get in field goal range. And instead of calling the next play, he'd go to the refs. You didn't see what he did there about a play that didn't matter, about a call was never going to be changed. And then they get a delay of game penalty because he's arguing to the ref about a play that doesn't matter instead of calling the next play. And those delay of games would cost them more so than the arguing that he was trying to overturn. Unfocused, undisciplined. Not only that, he would bring in players through the portal and then bench them after 3 weeks. This year, he brought in a high-priced quarterback. The guy played okay, not great, I admit, but okay. And after 4 weeks, they benched him, and they played 5 or 6 different quarterbacks. They were bringing guys off the street instead of playing the guy that they brought in and promised the job to. And it would be different if those guys were better. They weren't. They came in totally overwhelmed. No one on his team was ever prepared. What else there? We had Dylan Gabriel, the potential Heisman Trophy winner, was on our team, played a half a year with Malzahn and said, I got to get out of here. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. I can't take it. I am so glad this guy is gone. On a side note here, I work for UPS. I actually delivered to his house, and they've been remodeling their kitchen, getting ready to sell this thing for 6 to 8 weeks. He knew he was gone before this week. That's inside information. He knew he was leaving. They were getting the house ready to sell this whole year. This guy is a joke and good riddance. I lost a little focus there during that, but do you have any take on UCF football at all? I know you probably don't watch as much as some of our other audience members out there.
I don't have a hot take on UCF football. All I know is he's going to be the offensive coordinator at one of his buddies' schools, Florida State, and they just finished with 2 wins. And they're bringing in this guy to try to hype up the offense. So I don't know what the reasoning is there.
You know what? I'm glad you said that. I got more to say here. So, oh wait, what'd you say? This is what he would do, right? They're off. This is serious though. The offense would start to sputter, right? Because he's an offensive genius. I don't know who told him that, right? The only time he had a good coaching season in Auburn, he had Cam Newton, who was like the biggest man on the entire field, you know?
He was a coordinator. He was a coordinator then, though.
Yeah, he was coordinator then took over the job after that when that coach left and became a senator. Anyway. So he's the one who's supposed to call the plays, being the offensive guy. So I forget if he started calling the plays or had an offensive coordinator when he started with UCF. It doesn't really matter. But either way, they would start to fade or fail. And he'd be like, you know what? I'm going to take the play calling duties away from that coordinator who I gave the job to because that's the reason why we're not doing good. And then he'd call plays for 6 weeks. He's like, man, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not paying attention to the game too much. I need to give play calling duties to an offensive coordinator so I can focus on the game and call the timeouts when I'm supposed to. And then he'd get a grace period for 2 or 3 weeks because he's like, we're changing things up. We're trying to get it better. And then it'd fall into the same thing. And he's like, he went back and forth 4 times between calling plays, giving it to the coordinator, taking it back, just to buy him 2 or 3 weeks at a time before he realized it doesn't matter who's calling the plays, man. It's you. You're the one that's the constant all the time on the sideline. I had something else I wanted to say about this too. I forgot when you said Florida State. I don't know. Anyway, this guy, this guy, I've been holding him because I'm a UCF fan, but I'm watching the games. Oh yeah, that's it. His offense, great offensive mind. He calls 3 plays over and over and over and over again, and they work 20% of the time. He's like, let's run it again. It's a fake handoff, quick slant. Fake handoff, quick slant. Nothing to the outside, nothing over the top. Once eventually those linebackers just start sitting in and they just bust those things open because it's fake handoff, quick slant. Every time, over and over again. It's obnoxious. How can you be a genius and have 4 plays, man? You've been in the league coaching for 40 years. Bigger playbook.
Would you rather him have a zone blocking scheme and run the triple option?
I don't care what it is, just different.
Just different. Just
That's the
different.
only time you can run the same play over and over again when you have like a triple option, and then you're just like, we know we suck, but we're Georgia Tech. We're just gonna beat a random team because they don't know how to handle us.
Paul Johnson.
Not to mention
boy.
Georgia Tech always beat UCF because we couldn't stop a friggin' running game.
There you go. There you go.
All right. A little too much, but I know. Put comments, UCF grads out there. I know you have an opinion one way or the other. Am I being too hard on this guy, or am I finally giving him unloading on the guy who deserves it?
Yeah, time to go.
All right, I'm sorry, Zen. Okay, now it's time to get into some waiver wire targets, and there's some big names out there and high price acquisitions to be had. Bernie, why don't you start us off with some of your waiver wire targets?
All right, some major shifts this week that can make or break the fantasy playoffs here. Okay, top options for quarterback, Mr. Bryce Young. Now, we're not in maybe territory anymore with Young. He's playing like the best rookie quarterback of 2023. And while Philly in week 14 looks scary, his playoff schedule is tastier than your mom's Thanksgiving turkey. We're talking Dallas, Arizona, and Tampa Bay. So if you need quarterback help for the fantasy playoffs, this is your guy. Next up, Michael Penix Jr. You know, things are rough for the Falcons. Well, when everything about Kirk Cousins' performance, that's what's going on there. Penix could be starting sooner rather than later. And with those weapons in Atlanta, that's kind of a lottery ticket that wins leagues here. Aiden O'Connell had his best half as a pro against the Chiefs, almost pulled off an upset. He gets Tampa this week, and then a dream stretch of Atlanta, Jacksonville, and New Orleans after that. So if you're in the playoff, if you're playing quarterback roulette, O'Connell might be your lucky number here. And some quick hits. Cooper Rush gets the Bengals struggling defense if you're desperate. Mac Jones shows signs of life that might face Tennessee without Lawrence. And Drew Lock, well, he's got wheels now, apparently. At least that's something. So we're the part of the season where the QB decision can make or break your playoff hopes here. You got anything?
Sorry, I was thinking about other things for a little bit. I'm not going to lay all the space out. I'm assuming you said Isaac Arendo, obviously, right?
No. Just quarterbacks.
Oh, just quarterback. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, you hit everybody right there. Honestly, Cooper Rush is a potential. This might make or break what you're going to do. I'm strongly considering putting him in as a start of the week this week against those the Bengals who give up tons of points lately. So all those guys are perfect. Yep. Sorry about that. Yep.
No, you're good. You're good. All right. So now for running back. So we've got some potential league winners this week. All right. So listen up here, guys. Isaac Arendo. Let me say that. Isaac Garendo. I can't even roll my R's. Mike, drop everything. With McCaffrey and Mason both hitting IR, Garendo is the next man up in this productive 49ers ground game. And I say productive with a little, hesitancy there. So this is the kind of waiver wire that picks, that wins championships for you folks. Next up, Sincere McCormick. Remember that what Antonio Pierce did with Zamir White last December? Well, this former undrafted free agent might be up next from the Raiders backfield. So sometimes presents come in packages you've never heard of. So quick hits here. Raheem Mostert saw his high snap count since week 6 and might be Devon Achan's insurance policy. Antonio Gibson showed that trademark burst against the Colts. So if you need emergency depth, he's good to go to there.
All right. I also have I'm not sure if you mentioned earlier, I don't know if you mentioned this time, Kamani Vidal potentially might get a little more work ahead of Gus Edwards, who's been pretty ineffective, except for 1.5 games maybe. So that's the only other guy here on this list. Just because we're getting a little long on time, if you keep your wide receivers a little shorter, maybe 3 to 4 max, who do you have for your wide receivers?
I got one. Mr. Parker Washington. So this might be our guy. He clicked with Mac Jones, and now he's getting the Titans defense that just let Washington's receivers run wild in week 13. All the other players that I've got are all tight ends that I'm not really excited about. So
just add to that list real quick. They're on bye this week, but Josh Downs is banged up. Not sure how long he's going to be banged up. The bye might be just enough time, but Alec Pierce is still available. And Elijah Moore, whenever Jameis Winston throws the ball around, we have some other guys getting the bigger numbers. Njoku gets the touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy this week gets the big yards. Tillman sometimes gets the big play, but Moore is always right there. He's usually second or third, getting close to 80 yards, if not more, with multiple catches. So he's definitely worth considering anyway. Now for some defenses, but keep it simple. We're going to stay in the same game. Tennessee against Jacksonville. Either defense is playing against a bad offense, so this could be a shutout. This game's going to be 3-0. I don't know what the actual score is going to be. I have a feeling Tennessee has a chance to score more points here on offense. But you got Mac Jones and you got Will Levis. Both guys have a chance to make big blunders and or have bad offensive outputs altogether. Again, because we're a little short on time here, we're just going to skip the it's time, the please hold time to go. We don't need to do that right now because it's late in the year and a lot of teams, it's all about specifics for your particular players. Definitely back up your running backs. And, if you're going to drop anybody, you're dropping mediocre guys you're never going to start or you're not worried about hurting you to get insurance policies. All right, to review our last week's starts of the week, once again, we are on a slide as a show. I'm going to run through this pretty quick if you don't mind, Bernie.
Yep, go for it.
Coming into this, so last week we were 30-36 on a big-time slide. I was 17-16 going in. Bernie was 13-20 going in. And our last week's starts of the week, Bernie had Matt Stafford, Jalen Warren, and CeeDee Lamb. And unfortunately, they all underperformed their projections. Stafford and Warren were pretty close to their projections, but just under. And CeeDee Lamb, who had the biggest projection of, not a huge one, but he left the game early with an injury, making it pretty hard to get that number. Now, I had Baker Mayfield, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Nico Collins. Not much better, as Baker Mayfield had a really rough day, only scoring 14 points against his near 20-point projection. Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 11.4 points, not bad, but he had a huge projection of 14.9. Maybe the projection makers thought David Montgomery might miss some time like I did. That wasn't the case. That might not be the reason why it happened, but that was what I was hoping for in terms of projections. And then Nico Collins saved the day, the only one who outperformed his projection, and only by a little bit, projected at 14.6, earned 15.9. We'll take him however we can get him. So last week as a show, we were 1-5-0. I was 1-2. Bernie was 0-3. Our new total is 31-41, where I'm holding on to 500 with dear life at 18-18, and Bernie's at 13-23. Do you have any quick remarks on the starts of the week from last week, or you just want to throw it in the trash?
Let's just throw it in the trash. But one thing about Jalen Warren, Najee didn't really take Jalen's stuff because when Najee went out, the Joker came in and he took Jalen Warren's snaps.
Oh,
that was his name just
Cordero Patterson.
Cordero Patterson. So now we get a taste if Najee goes out, because Najee was out just for a little bit in that game. If Najee goes out, it's not going to be 100% Jalen Warren.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I didn't notice that particularly.
Yep.
Good to know. All right, guys, it is now time. We have another puppy in the kennel. We have another sad puppy.
Wingman Fantasy Football. Sad puppy.
Do you know what kind of puppy he is? He's a French bulldog, because that's what he's got at his house.
Oh, there you go. All right. So unfortunately, we have one more manager who is no longer viable to make the playoffs this year. Nick's plight was that his team was 2 up and 2 down. Very inconsistent, just like the Dolphins. Gosh, I'm going to do this again. I'm sorry. We'll do it again. Unfortunately, we have now one more manager out of the playoffs. Nick's plight, that's a different tone. Nick's plight was that his team was 2 up and down. Like the Dolphins, it's clear that the world is against him. The Wingman Fantasy Football League has no place for marsupials or swimming mammals, whatever the Dolphins might be. Like the Dolphins neurologist, the fix was in. We're going to have to blame somebody. It's not your fault, Nick. It wasn't your fault. It's never your fault. Trust me. It can't be. Somehow, I think we should blame the cold weather in Kansas City, even though they didn't play Kansas City. Or maybe it was
Buffalo.
the refs. Or maybe it was anyone in the world that thinks Nick should not have made the playoffs. It's not your fault, Nick. It's the world. Remember that. You're perfect in every way. Just like you seen Mad Max Fury Road? You're like the stillborn baby in that movie. I got a brother. I had a baby brother, and he was perfect in every way. Plane crashes and bad baby things. All right, guys, it's been a long show. We got to get out of here. With that being said, I want to thank you all so very much for watching another edition of If this is your last edition, thanks for joining us. Another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League podcast. You can find our audio feeds on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. If you want to see, just search Wingman the League on those platforms and we'll come right to the top of your search. If you want to, not sure if you want to watch or listen, go to wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. And if you want to watch all of this mess, you can go to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. If you go there, please leave a like, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the UCF coaching change and coaching search and all that other good stuff. With that being said, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And if a tight end falls in the forest and no one drafted him, does he still score 0 points?
If it's Kyle Pitts, he does. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.